Let the meltdown begin. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network. I am Gabriel Morency. Let's do this thing. UFC 186 style. There's been a ton of criticism of this weekend's card in Montreal, but you know what? I don't care because I see a lot of value on the board this weekend. And, you know, hey, is it the card that it was originally booked to be? No, but it doesn't mean that there's not money to be made. And there's going to be some entertaining tilts on this card. We're going to break it down with Joey Odessa, the premier combat sport odds maker in the business. We'll take a look at the main event, see if anything on the prelims catches Odessa's eye. We've got a $250 free roll, courtesy of countermove.com. Check it out right now. Log on, countermove.com. It's free to enter. That's right, it's free to enter, so it doesn't cost you a cent. You don't have to do anything. You just got to log in, register, and you can win $250 in prizes. We'll give you our thoughts on UFC 186 from a fantasy perspective. A little bit later on in the show, we got some great videos, as always, as well. But without further ado, let's talk some fights with Joey Odessa. Let's take a quick recap of what we just saw in Newark before we take a look at UFC 186. Joey, it's always a pleasure. What's up, man?
Hey, what's happening, G? Yeah, you know what? I don't mind paying for a pay-per-view. When you got 50-some-odd cards a year, and we get some of these free, I mean, they all even out in the end. I mean, it's just like the good beats and the bad beats. I don't mind, you know, this card might turn out to have some outstanding matchups on it. I mean, there's some good matchups here.
You know, Demetrius Johnson doesn't get to do his just due as being one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. I think this Horiguchi is better than a lot of people realize as well. I mean, is it UFC 100? No, it isn't. But as you stated, you know, MMA fans complain so much. I understand people aren't in a hurry to shell out $60 for this, but at the same point in time, you know, nothing stops you from going down to the local sports bar and watching this. And as somebody that's going to the event, and you know, people that I talk to in Montreal, Joey, they're happy, man. You're getting great tickets for cheap right now. It's going to be a great. What's going to happen with this card? The pay-per-view will be a big disaster. And I bet you everybody in the arena has a great time. That's what's going to happen.
Well, there's 12 fights on the card. I mean, where are you going to get a 12-fight card? The Mayweather fight's not going to. I don't think it's going to have 12 fights on the card. I mean, it's going to have one huge name. But these fights are. I mean, look, even if you know, just to jump all the way down randomly. I mean, Cote and Riggs. Who knows what's going to happen there? Riggs shoots himself in the leg. Cote might be a little, long in the tooth right now. But it's a it's a fight. You know, Kaufman and Davis, same thing. I mean, there's some good women's fights on this card this whole weekend with Invicta. I mean, and CB Dalloway and Bisping. I mean, contrasting styles. You know, Dalloway's been a moneymaker in the past. I mean, if we knew who was going to win these fights, they wouldn't fight the fights. All
right, Joey, so let's start off at the top here. Mighty Mouse has been one of the most dominant champions in the UFC. In fact, he hasn't lost since 2011. He had the draw with Ian McCall, of course. He's won 7 straight. He had the draw with McCall, and he hasn't lost since 2011. That was at $135 to Dominic Cruz. And as you say, no shame in losing to Dominic Cruz. So we got Horiguchi coming in here. People don't really know a hell of a lot about Horiguchi. We see Mighty Mouse is 10-1, and I understand. You know, he's dominant. He's very hard to hit. It's hard to find any weaknesses in Demetrius's game. But with that being stated, I think this number's a little bit too high here, Joey.
Yeah, I mean, I think of course it's the right favorite. He's a champ. But I tell you, Horiguchi, he's only got one loss, and I'll pronounce the name wrong, to that Ueda over in Japan. I believe it was in Shudo, but it was in 2012. He hasn't lost. He's 4-0 in the UFC. He fought in Vale Tudo in Japan, and he also had he fought at 136 pounds. So he's down at weight. You know, it's not a bad matchup. I mean, on paper, it looks like a great matchup. You know, it's just the fact that we've seen how dominant Johnson has been and how quick and slick and in and out. And, I mean, look at Johnson's wins. I mean, they speak the world of him. I mean, Moraga,
It's the way he's doing it, Joey, because you're right. Yeah. Before, people were like, oh, he's boring. He runs around for 25 minutes and you can't hit him and stuff. Well, how can you say he's boring, man? 3 of his last 4 wins have been via stoppage. He's either knocking you out or subbing you right now. And he's beating up some pretty tough-ass dudes, like you just said.
Really tough. I mean, he beat that Russian, the kid Ali. I don't recall the last name, but he beat the Russian kid. He beat Joe Benavidez, who seems to do everything short of winning a title. And he did that dominating. I mean, he beat Dodson. He's tough as nails, man. I mean, he's a champ. He's a champ for a reason. He's a 10-1 favorite. Can lightning strike? Sure it can. Will it? I mean, the odds are not in the favor. The odds aren't really in your favor. I mean, I don't want to run out and lay 10-1 on them because you get beat, you lose the whole card. I mean, you're just torched.
All right, so let's take a look at Bisping and Dalloway. As you know, Joey, Dalloway is a friend of the program, and we are friends with his camp as well, and we have been for years. But as you know, money and friendship are two different things, right, Joey? So when I look at this, you can't just bet on people because, you were buddies with them. Now, Dalloway's done a great job over the last 2 years. He's really reinvented himself. He had a lot of hype early in his career. He sort of tailed off, and he's really put it together, man. I mean, he's 5-1, 5-2 in his last 7 fights, but I thought he really beat Tim Boetsch. I thought that was a bad call. But you look at Michael Bisping. He's alternated wins and losses since 2012 in his last 7 fights. So he's actually due for a win right now, Joe. And I just don't know. Bisping's stand-up, Bisping's takedown defense, 63% is pretty good. I don't know if Dalloway is really going to be able to take him down. And if he does, if he's able to keep him down. And I think Bisping has the advantage standing up. At minus 155 right now, I like Bisping at this stage of the week.
Yeah, I tell you, I used to look at Bisping and say, the British guy, the wrestler, he's not really, I didn't really have a high opinion of him, but he won fights. He came out and he won a lot of fights. I mean, his last loss to Rockhold, I mean, no shame. And now look what Rockhold just did to Machida. He destroyed Machida, who in turn, you want to do MMA math, you'd probably take Dalloway simply because the price is low. Looking at Bisping, you'd think Bisping would be higher. It almost looks like a trap. And you had Machida KO and Dalloway with, I think it was a body kick in his last fight. So Bisping, Dalloway's coming off a loss, right, to Leota, and then Rockhold went out and destroyed Leota. So you would think that, A beats B beats, the MMA math of it, which is always a recipe for failure. I mean, look no further than, the past weekends. I mean, one thing I do want to say is I was completely wrong on the radio show about Jan Valente. I did make a phone call after the fact, and
well, that's the thing, Joey. That's right. We talked about Valente last week, and we said, we have no faith in Valente. But information changes, and, it's very, very difficult to lock in selections on a Tuesday or a Wednesday of fight week. It really is, especially, somebody like you, and I know myself as well. It's one of the biggest tools that I use, actually, when handicapping fights, is the behind-the-scenes stuff that is going on, and information changes at times.
It does. A big thing, and I talk about it a lot, is, it's even with stock, with traders and things, they say, look, don't tell people who you're on because it creates, your ego will prevent you from getting off a bad side. And I tell you, my ego didn't prevent me from, hindsight 100%, didn't prevent me from getting off of a bad side. I jumped ship when I heard some things about Valente. I even made a phone call to you, and I said, look, disregard everything I said. I would bet him with your money, and I'm going to bet him with my money. I wish I would have. I wish I would have. But, all right, so let's blast through this. We only got a couple of minutes left here, Joe. So you got Bisping and Dalloway. I'm going with Bisping here. Yeah, I gotta like Bisping. I was never a fan of Bisping's wrestling, but you know what? He's gotten it done. He's exceeded all expectations I've ever had of. If he retired tomorrow, I would have to say that he goes out, in the upper. I have respect for Bisping. I didn't when he was on The Ultimate Fighter. I thought that he gave up his back a little bit too much. But I mean, we're talking. I don't even know how many years ago that was. It seems like yesterday with some of these fights. Yeah, I think it's a good matchup for him. I got a lot of respect for Dalloway, but I just think it's a good matchup for a hungry and a desperate Bisping. I think Bisping gets it done. We got to get out of here, Joey. Always a pleasure. Check out Joey's new website, Odessa.com. Thanks for the time. Hey, thanks, Gabe, and have a good one. There's
Joey Odessa with us. Right, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll tell you about the $250 free roll, courtesy of Counter Move, and I'll give you a couple of fantasy tips for UFC 186.